Just when I thought I knew exactly what I was going to do, I get an offer that just changes everything. So I did a video yesterday talking about what I'm going to do with my Colmar license. I have figured out what I'm going to do with it in terms of branding. I'm going to save that for another video though. But this video is about what I'm doing with Empire FC. Now, looking at the players that I have in my club, there were just a few too many that are too good for the Spark division, which is where my two main clubs are going to be. There might be a third club, depending on how everything shakes out. We're going to see where that goes. But basically, looking at my top rated guys, I've got Stuart Freeman here, the 79 rated cam, obviously way too good for Spark, as well as Minor Viquez from Costa Rica, right mid, 75 rated. So those guys are going to be shipped off. I am also likely going to let Coyote Udo go, along with Rafael Porter, probably Engelbert Engelhart, and my striker Gerard Hendricks, 67 rated. So what I was trying to figure out is whether I should make my club, Empire FC at least, be the home of these higher rated guys and then fill in the rest with these lower rated guys. Makes sense, right? The problem is that I think that my MFL priority is going to be progression, and specifically player progression, not necessarily progressing through the divisions up. And if I want to do that, if I want to get my 60 to 64 rated guys to progress throughout the upcoming season, I'm going to need more players like them, because those guys training with a bunch of 50 to 54 rated guys, weirdly, I have this gap between 54 and 60 that's untouched. Training with them, playing in the Spark division probably is not the ideal case to get them progressing. So I have talked about this a little bit, and I got a very interesting offer from Trust the Process. And I'm sure it's just because I'm making these videos, but that I've gotten two kind of attractive offers from the two biggest agencies on the platform after I had that interesting one from the Fortress agency where I sent my top 6 guys, which is basically Freeman through Hendricks, and that they would give me 12 kind of lower rated guys, and that would allow me to fill out the team. So that came from Fortress. I got another one from Trust the Process, who was interested in my Minor Viquez card. Like I said, 75 rated, 22-year-old left-footed right mid, and with an impressive 84 dribbling. Wow. And so the offer from Trust the Process was to take Minor Viquez here and give me 10 players rated between 60 and 64. And that would allow me to have almost a full squad of players between 60 and 64, which kind of can maximize their training and their progression throughout the season. And it's a really interesting offer. The funny thing about it is I was thinking about it as a loan the whole time, meaning I would loan Viquez to Trust the Process, who knows which of the 46 clubs that he ends up on, but it would be higher in a higher division that would allow him to both progress and help earn MFL through the season. And obviously the 10 players that I would get to add to the 6 that I have here between 60 and 64. So that's Nuno Pinto, my Portuguese striker. Let's see, Vinko Samardzic, Zoltan Stelmach, Lutfi, Camberi I actually really like, Haider Pachon, and Pierce Flynn as my striker. Flynn was on loan. Basically all of them were on loan for most of the season. Season 4 after I picked them up. So the idea was basically, can these 6 guys and the 10 that I get from Trust the Process compete enough in Spark to either get me promoted or finish highly and allow them to progress? And the reason why the progression part is important to me is because I kind of had this thought that maybe instead of being a club that kind of goes with an overpowered roster to get out of Spark as soon as possible so that I can get to Ice and then just continue to get promoted, maybe player progression is really what I want to focus on. And if that's the case, then having these higher rated guys in Spark really make no sense. And if I want to get these guys who are in the 60s a little higher, I'm going to need 60s to play with them. And like looking at the progression over the season, and this was, I only got these guys basically halfway through season 4. And Engelhart has had some really good progression up, a +3 overall. I have this Ilnaz Fomenko, who was actually one of my first players to really start progressing. And it was almost frustrating because he's already 29. And, you know, I haven't gotten the notification that he's going to be retiring in 3 years, but a 47 rated player, center back, who already has a +3 plus everything else that's come here. You know, it's like, oh, that's great. But also, why couldn't it be the 23-year-old center back in the 40s that can get the progression? But anyway, I love this part of the game. It's seeing your players get a positive progression after training or after matches is just, it's really fun. And it's one of those things that is totally unknown in the game. You know, we don't know exactly when our players are going to progress. We don't know how much they're going to progress. And so literally anyone in my agency could be a 99 rated player. And they just need to find the right progression path to take advantage of that. And probably none of them are going to be 99. Literally, the chances that even one of them is 99 is significantly low, especially because I only have 47 players. I don't have thousands. But what I want to focus on is progression. And so while I like having these higher rated guys, I got some of them in a pack. The Freeman one was one of the referral rewards, but I like the idea of focusing on clubs that are built to progress the players, regardless of where they finish in the table. Now, obviously, if they have higher ratings in matches, then theoretically that would be a positive in terms of results. And if they climb the table and I get promoted, like that's fantastic. But really, I want to see these +3s and +2s and +4. I want to see those for as many players as possible. And so I will be loaning out the top 6 right here: Freeman, Udo, Porter, Engelhart, Hendricks, and then Viquez is the option for trust the process. Now, we were talking earlier today, and just the way that I was picturing it all is that I would loan Viquez to trust the process, and then he would loan the 10 players to me for the season. And he sent me 10 players that he's kind of just suggesting. Again, he's got over 1,000 players, so I really appreciate Jonathan taking the time to find players that would fit with my club, specifically with the other players that I have, so that I'm not taking time away from them, but still allowing his players to progress. Now, it turned out today he was actually not necessarily, or he wasn't thinking at all about a loan. He wanted just to have essentially just a player swap, that the value of Viquez kind of on the open market, it would be comparable to the 10 players that he was sending me. And I just hadn't thought of this at all, because what I wanted to do as part of the way that I play MFL was, once a player is in my agency, they stay forever. And I haven't listed any players on the market. I have loaned out players, and I kind of wanted to have that be the way that my players can play other places and then earn me MFL that way. Now, obviously, if I sell them and I can buy better players and compete more, but it was almost like, because I am focusing on progression, I'm willing to loan out my higher players to almost outsource my MFL generation, so that then I can just buy more players who are kind of in the lower range and try to get them to progress up. So trust the process was more open to the loan idea. I don't think he really wants to do it. I think he's just being nice, which I appreciate. But what do you guys think? Like, should I basically do this trade? I will say that Viquez, 22 years old, a lot of the players that he was offering me they're not old by any means, but some of them are kind of in their later 20s, if you want to call like 27, I think 26, 27, 28. And I hate to say it, but giving up on a 22-year-old for a number of players that are obviously much closer to retirement, not to say that they're retiring in 3 years. In fact, none of them are, but they could be 4 years. I could get them all in, and then after this season 5 comes up and I get a notification that they're all retiring, who knows? You know, that's the risk. And Viquez, I feel like, is exactly the kind of player that I wanted to have in my agency to loan out and win MFL that way. Like ideally, and I assume that the bigger agencies do this, they have teams worth of loans that are out, not necessarily loaning 18 to 25 players to like one club, but just having dozens of players on loan so that when the season ends, they're just getting MFL from everywhere instead of just their own clubs. And that's part of the game I really liked. If I want to focus on progression, then maybe I can let some of my higher level players go earn MFL with managers who are better than I am in terms of playing the game of moving up the table and getting promoted and winning the top MFL for the league that they're in. And so I'm curious what you guys think. If I'm putting too much kind of random thought into, having Viquez stay in my agency for his entire career and going out and winning MFL with Trust the Process this year and then maybe someone else the year after. Although hopefully it's so successful with Trust the Process, maybe we just do it again next season. But I got to figure out what I'm doing because the season starts in about a week and I've got 2 clubs to fill. And the way I'm going to do the other club is basically start with everyone else. And so just scrolling down here, my top players here, Diego Bustamante, Luis Moya, and Patrick Johnson are 54 rated, as you can see there. Got 2 CDMs and Johnson's a winger with some pretty good pace, 79 pace for a 54 rated player. None of them have had any progression. And if you notice, Bustamante is already 28, Moya is already 27, but the guys below that are actually quite young. And so my idea is I'll use Empire FC for these 60 rated players. Theoretically, it'll be those 6 plus maybe 10 from Trust the Process, whether it's a loan or we just swap the players. And then I kind of try to run a Spark Club and try to get these guys as much progression as possible. But really, like 50 through 54, I've got enough players here for a full team. And is it going to be good enough to compete for, promotion to ice? Probably not. No matter how much I, get these guys in training and progress them throughout the season, I'm probably not going to win a league with guys between 50 and 54. I've seen plenty of people building their Spark teams with basically with these guys up here. Like I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to have a team in the 60s and maybe they can, compete for the top spots. But then I'll have the 50 range that I think may be the kind of standard Spark range after this season or the season after, depending on how quickly Spark fills and what kind of users come in. But that team will basically be a progression team. And I know people have that kind of, they call it their academy or whatever, but it does feel like it's at least a little more competitive, than some of the other ones that I see that it's like everybody's just kind of throwing their leftovers with. But speaking of leftovers, I do have some more. I mean, I have a bunch of guys in the 40s and they're not all that old, but they're all not that young either. But I do have, players like this, Didier Maréchal from Belgian, 49 rated center back who, already had a +2 in his first year. And so, do I put him in this team, in my next team that I'll reveal in another video? But, or do I keep him kind of on this third lower team that I still want to focus on progression? But obviously they should probably just get blasted in every game they play. But as long as, they're playing against good players, hopefully they can keep matches tight so their ratings aren't that bad. And we do see some positive progression from them throughout the season. And then, I'll have 30-ish, 35 players that are seeing progression throughout the season. So that's the plan, at least for now. As we all know, one idea comes up and then all of a sudden the whole plan just gets thrown out. But I think that's where I'm going to go. I think I'm going to try to loan out these top players here, including Viquez, to Trust the Process. The more I speak of it, the more it feels like I would rather just do loans. And hopefully I can convince him that I can progress his guys enough to make that deal. And the other ones are going to be put on the market. I already have a number of offers for Udo that I posted out of Stone. And I'm trying to do a 5% share, although here I see an 8%, which would be quite nice. I hadn't looked at that. But basically what I'm going to do is go through these teams and figure out if they're competitive enough in stone to justify Udo going there and me losing out on using him for a season, but having him progress and hopefully winning some MFL, and then, using that MFL to get some more players in so that we can just kind of keep the process going. So thank you for watching. If you have watched a bunch of these videos and you're now interested in joining MFL, there's a referral link in the description of this video. It helps support me and the channel. It'll get you a free common card when you spend $25. Today is what, April 22nd. There's a promo going on right now where if you buy a club pack, you get a free starter pack, which has 3 players, including a 20% chance of a player better than common. And so definitely take advantage of that. There's also another link in there about a Disney Pinnacle deal that'll get you 25 Dapper dollars after you spend $6.95 on a welcome bundle. But if you have any questions about any of that stuff, leave a comment below and I'll certainly respond. So please let me know what you think, and good luck to everyone else out there.